Damien O'Connor is the Minister responsible for live exports. He declined to be interviewed this evening, but joining me now is the Green Party spokesperson on animal welfare, Gareth Hughes. Good evening, Gareth. I think we should probably start by acknowledging this is a terrible situation all around. 43 crew on board there and a search currently underway. But this situation has obviously put attention back on the issue of live exports. Should New Zealand be doing this?
Well, kia ora, Lisa, and can I please start by just acknowledging the two New Zealanders on board that vessel, the families back home in New Zealand. This will be a time of worry, of great stress and anxiety, and my thoughts go out to them. I understand the latest news is that one person has been pulled from the sea. So I think we can be hopeful that we can see more come out soon, but this is a crisis emergency situation, and my thoughts go to those families.
Totally understand that. On the issue of the live exports, should New Zealand still be exporting live animals for breeding?
No, I don't think so. The government is currently reviewing the practice after that scandal of what we saw with the sick, dead and dying cattle sent to Sri Lanka. And it's something that I don't think should be continuing. We know these animals do suffer with distress aboard the ships for potentially weeks at sea. It's something that I've urged the Minister to act with haste on. I'm disappointed the review has taken so long to get to this point, but I've been very clear the Green Party's preference is for a ban on live export. We already have that for slaughter, but there is a loophole with the live export for breeding, and I fear that what we're actually seeing is the numbers ramp up as the review is dragging on. So I'm urging the Minister to take the strongest possible prohibition and act with haste.
So why do you think it has taken so long? Because this review has been underway for more than a year. Submissions are closed. Have you had any update?
No, I've been requesting updates from the Minister's office, including today. It's something I've been urging haste in all my communications with him previously. I have debated the Minister on this issue, and he's likened it to, pets aboard the Inter-Islander, and respectfully and frankly, I think it's completely different. I've sailed around New Zealand waters on the Rainbow Warrior. I know how rough it is, and comparing a 3-hour hop across the strait to weeks at sea, in the Southern Ocean, I think is a different kettle of fish. Look, I don't think it's good for the animals. We know they suffer, and we're a party that stands up for animals, the Greens. I don't think it's in our economic interest. I think it damages our international agricultural brand. And sadly, when you go out into a maritime environment, there are always risks involved. And sadly, we're seeing what the weather can throw up.
The counter to that, I suppose, is it is a relatively small number of animals. It's dropped from the peaks that were being exported. There are vets on board. Experienced stock handlers are required to be on board. These animals are for breeding only, not slaughter. And export certificates are only issued if the ministry is assured of animal welfare conditions. Isn't that enough?
No, we're still talking about tens of thousands of animals confined in very small spaces at sea. They can't understand what's happening with the rough conditions out there. Look, I've talked to many farmers that don't think it's in our economic interest to be sending our genetic material overseas. We could be sending, fertilised eggs or semen overseas instead without those animal welfare impacts. But there's also the reputational impact. We're exporting our animals to countries with lower animal welfare standards, and we have no control once we export these animals. So there's a huge number of moral, economic, reputational reasons why this practice should be banned. We can still export genetic material if we want to, but we don't have to export these animals.
The MPI website says the final decision on the review will consider the impact of COVID-19 on primary industries and their potential to lead New Zealand's economic recovery. These are tough times. New Zealand might need to keep this business or expand it.
It is tough times, and we're working to grow jobs within the government. However, we can still be exporting our intellectual property, if you were, the genetic material, but without exporting the animals. So there are a lot of farmers that I talk to that don't think this is in our economic interest, full stop.
It brings in about $250 million a year. That's not small change.
That's right, but we could be exporting the genetic material without exporting the animals. We do this in other sectors already. So Look, I think we're a country that stands up for animals. You know, we've got some of the highest legislation in the world for animal welfare standards, but sadly some of the practices aren't living up to those high values or aspirations that Kiwis have. So this is an issue which the Green Party has been very clear on. We want to see an end to this practice to make sure the animals aren't suffering in pain and distress.
Given what's happened, given that the review seems to have not reached any conclusions yet, are you going to be asking the Minister to halt all live exports in the meantime?
Well, previously, as a constructive solution, I've already publicly suggested that the Director-General for the Ministry of Primary Industries could put a moratorium in place. Already that office signs off on live exports. The statutory criteria, one of the points is reputational issues. Given this is being currently reviewed, I think it would make sense actually to have a moratorium on the practice until this review is out. But ultimately, I want to see this review concluded and I want to see this practice ended.
Before you go, Gareth, James Shaw, should he stay on as a leader or not, given his decision on this funding for a private school?
Yeah, he should stay on. He's got my support. I think he's actually shown a lot of mana in the last week. You know, he's taken responsibility, he's apologised, and he's trying to find a solution. So I think he's doing a good job.
You're heading off this term, but it must be pretty disappointing to see your party embroiled in this kind of turmoil just weeks out from an election.
Well, we've achieved a huge amount this term. You know, sadly, my 16 million, which I worked on with Minister Hipkins to get solar panels into schools, didn't get as much media attention as this one. But we've got a great track record of success. You know, the issues we're working on are front and foremost for many Kiwis. There's still a lot of work to do in terms of inequality and climate change, and I'm sure we'll be back, and a big part of the next government to deliver for Kiwis.
Appreciate your time this evening. That is Gareth Hughes, who is the Green Party's spokesperson on animal welfare.